and it is time before we get to your calls on that for Cleared to Play. We'll take you inside the tent, get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. Proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment and bring an associate professor of orthopedic surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Good, Doc. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. We were joking earlier that now we don't need to ask you about Jock Peterson and Thairo Estrada because they both just got activated and they're in the lineup tonight. But I still would love to. I feel like Peterson has been out maybe longer than one would think. What was your read on his injury and the length of time he was out?
Yeah, no, I think, in and of itself, like having a hand contusion and swelling, it doesn't seem like it would be a big deal. But I think anytime you're worried about grip, and I think batting is particularly where you're worried about how that's going to impact you, if you're not able to grip effectively and that impacts your ability to be effective on the field, I think it's going to take a significant amount of time. So depending on where he was kind of sore, where that bruising and swelling was, it can take sometimes several weeks to get back. So I think a lot of people say, just kind of, suck it up, deal with it, and get out there and play. But if you can't grip it and it's kind of throwing off your swing, then I think there can be a big impact in terms of his effectiveness. So not super surprising, but I know a lot of people were frustrated about why is he out for so long. It sounds like he's back out there, and hopefully he'll be in the lineup today.
Can the same thing be said for Thairo Estrada, who was put on the DL with a left wrist sprain? Is it something that you have to watch in terms of being able to play on back-to-back games, or once he's back, he should be okay and good to go?
I think typically you're usually good to go. I think they're pretty conservative with it. I think where you get worried about it's not necessarily the back-to-backs, but more so like how does it look in 7 to 10 days when Scott, you've got a lot of batting practice, you've played a lot. You've done a lot of throwing. So I think things like that where these things can creep back up a week or two from now. So I think back-to-back shouldn't be an issue. But, these hand and wrist injury in baseball players, even though they may seem minor in other sports, they really do impact performance. So I think you're looking to see how these kind of pan out as the next couple of games go on will be really key for both of them.
Doc, I wanted to ask this with regard to Brock Purdy, and we're now starting to hear people say ahead of schedule, always, weary of a setback, but I wonder if that's even relevant at this point. If there's going to be a setback in this kind of injury, could it happen at any point? Or is it almost like, and I apologize for this comp, but is it almost like a pregnancy that where like once you get through the first 3 months, it's so much more likely that it's going to go well?
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree. I think as you get further and further along from the surgery, the chance of something kind of bad happening goes down. I think these next couple of weeks are really the key time for him is to really see how that elbow holds up to as he gets going to throwing more vigorously, throwing at higher velocity. He's able to do that and progress, and we know that from the data, UCL repairs and pitchers who are throwing much harder than a quarterback does hold up very well. So I'm not necessarily worried about the throwing. I think the part that we really don't know about is how is that elbow going to hold up to in terms of repetitive contact. And I think that's the bigger deal is like when he takes that first hit, will he be able to throw then that next week? So I think that's a little bit of the worry, something that we don't really know about. We haven't seen quarterbacks play a long period of time after UCL repair. So that's where I worry about. How is it going to be week 4, week 5, week 6?
Is there anything he can wear in a protective way to prevent that sort of a shock impact on the throwing elbow?
No, it's really difficult. It's a tough thing, and I know that you can have braces, you can have other things, but then that's going to affect his throwing motion. And the last thing we need is more people staring at throwing motions of 49ers quarterbacks on YouTube. But I think that's the key thing is that you just can't brace it. So teams are going to go after it. He's going to get contact on that, and people are going to try to tackle him with that right elbow. So I think it's something to watch because we just don't have the data. We don't know how throwing athletes who take contact do with this injury.
Doc, what do you think on the NBA Finals and the Tyler Hero situation? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, if you look at NBA players who kind of come off, kind of a broken hand like he has, they usually end up being right around 50 to 55 days. That's where most of the data lands. He's obviously a little bit earlier, kind of at the 6-week mark. I think there was a report, yesterday that said he was still having some swelling in the hand. So I think even though he may technically be healed, he's got plates, screws, pins, whatever are in his finger, how that hand's going to respond, just like a baseball player, particularly with your shooting hand, I think that's really going to impact how he performs. And then you get him in there, his rhythm's off, his timing off. Is it really going to help the team out? So I think for someone who is primarily a three-point shooter who's doing a lot of ball handling, he may not necessarily be able to play big minutes, or if there's any swelling or any discomfort or stiffness that comes from these kind of injuries, it may limit him. So it sounds like he's progressing, but I would not be surprised if he doesn't play because these hand injuries are very tenuous, and just a little bit of swelling, a little bit of stiffness can throw off your ability to be effective.
Interesting. Could throw off Miami as well. They've obviously got a good thing going without him. Doc, great stuff as always. We thank you so much for hopping in.
No problem. Take care, guys.
Oh, there he is. Dr. Nirav
Thanks,
Pandya.
Doc.
Proceeding was sponsored by UCSF Health.